Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are delighted to share various stories about love and betrayal from around the world with you. So now, let's begin today's story journey. A thunderous noise echoed in the study as the divorce agreement fell heavily on James's face, with scattered papers drifting like snowflakes onto his laptop and desk. Sign it now? I want to start a new life with my lawyer boyfriend. Sophia stood at the study door, hands on her hips, her face full of disdain and contempt. James looked up from the pile of documents, his gaze calm as water behind his glasses. He picked up the scattered divorce papers and meticulously arranged them. At 39, the founder of a somewhat renowned software consulting firm in Boston's business circle, he began carefully reading the agreement terms as if it were an ordinary contract. What are you reading for? Sign it. Sophia impatiently approached. Nathan said this agreement is already generous enough to you. I don't care about your pathetic assets. James looked at his wife of 8 years. The gentle and caring woman from his memories seemingly vanished without a trace. At 35, Sophia was now a marketing director at a multinational company, with only cold eyes beneath her exquisite makeup. Give me a moment. James's voice was soft but firm. There's nothing to consider. I've been more than fair to you. Nathan says your little company is worthless. I haven't even asked for a share of the company. Save it. I know you're doing some little project in Spain, but those don't amount to much either. Sophia's voice carried a hint of disdain. James didn't respond. He picked up his pen and signed his name on the last page. No arguments, no questioning, not even a tear. He closed the folder and handed it to Sophia. That's it. Sophia was somewhat surprised. She had expected James to beg her to stay, to kneel down pleading, to become hysterical. That's it. I wish you happiness, Sophia. There was no sarcasm in James's voice, only an indescribable calmness. Sophia grabbed the folder and turned to leave. Before closing the door, she glanced back at James still sitting at his desk. A flash of confusion crossed her mind, but was quickly replaced by the joy of her soon-to-begin new life. After the door closed, James removed his glasses and gently rubbed his temples. He opened his computer and sent an email that had been prepared long ago. The email was brief, plan-initiated. The recipients were his overseas legal team. 6 months ago, James first noticed Sophia's unusual behavior. That day was their wedding anniversary, and James had ended work early to surprise her. He had reserved a table at Sophia's favorite French restaurant and bought a diamond necklace she had liked for a long time. However, Sophia didn't return home until 9 that night, carrying the scent of unfamiliar cologne. She explained she was delayed discussing a project with clients, and James didn't ask further. But when he tried to present the gift at dinner, Sophia seemed distracted, even irritable. I'm too tired, James. This project is exhausting me. She said this, then went to bed early without even opening the gift. In the days that followed, Sophia increasingly worked overtime and often went out on weekends to meet clients. James wasn't foolish, but he chose to believe until a chance encounter. At a business cocktail party, James met Rachel, Sophia's colleague. During casual conversation, Rachel inadvertently mentioned that Sophia seemed to be getting close to a well-known lawyer recently. You know, Nathan, one of Boston's best corporate lawyers. We all envy Sophia for collaborating with him on that project, Rachel smiled. They often dine together. They seem to get along very well. James nodded with a smile, but his heart was churning. After returning home, he began to notice Sophia's every move. Her phone had a new password she often hid to make calls, and Instagram showed many elegant dinner photos but never mentioned with whom. All signs pointed to one possibility. Sophia was having an affair. James hired a private investigator and soon received conclusive evidence. Sophia and Nathan weren't just colleagues. They had developed an intimate relationship. In the photos, Sophia walked arm in arm with Nathan out of a luxury apartment building, their intimate gestures leaving no room for doubt. That night, James sat alone in his study, reviewing his 8-year marriage. He remembered their first meeting when Sophia was still a marketing assistant full of dreams, and he had just founded his company. They had endured the hardships of entrepreneurship together, and Sophia had once been his strongest support. However, as Sophia climbed the corporate ladder, she began to frequent high society circles. James knew Sophia had always craved a more glamorous life, but he chose to run his business with a low profile. On the surface, his software consulting company was small, but in reality, he had secretly built a multinational business empire over the past 5 years. He owned companies in Spain, Mexico, Argentina, and other countries, focusing on investments in emerging technology fields. This secret was known only to his core team. Sophia always thought he was just a moderately successful tech company owner. His income was considerable, but far from the glamorous lifestyle she imagined. James wasn't a workaholic. He was highly efficient and always returned home on time to be with Sophia. They had no children, a mutual decision. Sophia wanted to achieve more in her career first. James respected and supported her choice, never interfering with her work or social life. However, Sophia seemed to misunderstand James's support and respect, viewing it as a lack of ambition. She began to admire those who could bring her into higher social circles, and Nathan perfectly fulfilled this desire. Nathan was one of Boston's hottest corporate lawyers. At 38, he was handsome and dashing, frequenting various high-end venues and knowing countless influential people. Most importantly, Nathan gave Sophia a sense of social recognition that James couldn't provide. James decided not to alarm them. He quietly began preparations, restructuring his overseas assets to ensure Sophia couldn't obtain any information during the divorce. It wasn't for revenge, but to protect his years of hard work. A month ago, Sophia finally proposed divorce. She declared she had found true love and wanted to pursue her own happiness. James calmly accepted and even helped her contact a divorce lawyer. Sophia was somewhat confused by James's cooperation, but quickly attributed it to his weakness and reluctance to let go. Now, the divorce agreement had been signed. James stood up and walked to the window. Boston's night was deepening, lights shining brightly. Tomorrow, everything would be different. The next morning, Sophia and Nathan had breakfast at a high-end cafe, celebrating their soon-to-begin new life. He really signed without a word? Nathan took a sip of black coffee, somewhat surprised. Yes, without even trying to fight for it, Sophia shrugged. I told you he has no backbone. He's been a coward all these years. If I had really settled for mediocrity like him, I wouldn't have my position today. Then we can move our plan forward. Nathan flashed a charming smile. We can arrange that Puerto Rico project as soon as possible. I've already talked to several investors. It's an excellent opportunity, though it involves some risk, but the returns are enormous. Sophia's eyes sparkled with excitement. Nathan had not only given her passionate love, but also promised to bring her into higher business circles. As a lawyer, Nathan's clients included top figures across various industries, precisely the resources Sophia had always dreamed of. Did he say anything after signing? Nathan continued to ask, checking emails on his phone. No, just simply wished me happiness. Sophia's expression was complex. To be honest, I thought he would try to win me back. Isn't that better? It saves a lot of trouble. Nathan patted her hand. Don't think too much. Tonight we'll meet the CEO of the Blackwell Group. He's very interested in our investment plan. Sophia nodded, forcing herself not to think about James's calm eyes when signing. That look wasn't of someone losing a loved one, but rather of relief. She quickly dismissed this thought and turned to discuss the details of her evening attire. Meanwhile, James had flown to Madrid, Spain. His personal assistant Emma greeted him at the airport. Did everything go according to plan? James asked, his voice showing no post-divorce sadness, only a cool determination. Yes, all documents are ready, and the team is waiting for you. Emma answered, taking James's luggage. Are you all right? Better than ever. James's lips curved slightly upward. It's time to unveil the mask. On the way to the office, James looked at the Madrid scenery outside the window, feeling no regret, only anticipation for the future. 8 years of marriage had become the past, but the curtain of his business empire was just rising. His phone rang with a news notification. Tech tycoon James acquires Europe's top chip manufacturer. Transaction amount reaches $2.8 billion. The news mentioned this was just the tip of the iceberg of James's global tech empire surfacing. He actually controlled 12 tech companies around the world, with total assets exceeding $10 billion. James gently clicked the share button, sending this news to his Instagram account, an account he rarely updated, but that Sophia and her circle could see. Meanwhile, in Boston, Nathan was preparing for the evening meeting in his office when his assistant rushed in with a shocked expression. "Mr. Nathan, you need to see this." The assistant handed him a tablet. On the screen was a financial news report about James's acquisition. Nathan initially thought it was someone with the same name. But when he saw the photo, his face turned pale. The James in the photo was indeed Sophia's recently divorced husband. "This is impossible." Nathan's hand trembled slightly. He quickly searched for James's name, and more news popped up. James had not only acquired the chip manufacturer, but also controlled a vast tech investment network. He owned companies in 12 countries worldwide, with assets exceeding $10 billion. Most shocking to Nathan was that several of these companies were direct competitors to his most important clients. This included the main competitor of the Blackwell Group, whose CEO he planned to introduce to Sophia that evening. Just then, Nathan's phone rang. It was Sophia. "Have you seen the news?" Sophia's voice trembled, barely controlling her emotions. "James, I'm looking at it now." Nathan's voice was much calmer, but his heart was in turmoil. "He lied to me. All these years he's been lying to me." Sophia shouted hysterically. "He has so much money, and I thought he was just an ordinary small company owner. I knew he was hiding things from me." Nathan didn't immediately respond. His mind was racing, assessing how this sudden situation would affect him. If James truly had such influence, his relationship with Sophia could threaten his career, especially considering he had intentionally and unintentionally disclosed some client confidential information to Sophia to please her. "We need to stay calm," Nathan finally said. "This might just be media hype. I'll check it out." "Hype? Nathan, that's definitely James in the photo. This can't be hype." Sophia's voice was full of anger and shock. "He owns 12 companies. 12. And he never told me." "Sophia, calm down." Nathan's tone became serious. "I need to handle some urgent matters. We'll talk later." After hanging up, Nathan immediately contacted several friends in the financial industry. Beyond doubt, James was indeed a hidden billionaire with an extremely high reputation in the business circle. There were even rumors that top investment banks and tech giants were competing to establish partnerships with him. Nathan frowned, contemplating an escape route. If James decided to use his influence, a lawyer suspected of leaking client confidences could likely have his career ruined. Meanwhile, Sophia sat in her office, her phone screen showing James's Instagram page. The news post already had hundreds of comments, mostly congratulations and amazement. Several of her social circle friends had already privately messaged her asking if she knew about this, their tones clearly mocking and curious. A painful fact emerged in Sophia's mind. She had always thought James lacked ambition and social status. In reality, James owned far more than she had ever known. She hadn't left an unknown small company owner, but a hidden business titan. More ironically, she often complained to friends about James's lack of ambition, and now these words had become mockery of herself. Those friends who once envied her for finding a better place must now be laughing behind her back at her short-sightedness. The phone rang again. It was the company's HR director. "Sophia, can you come to my office?" The director's voice was unusually serious. Sophia's heart sank. She sensed that the storm was just beginning. Sophia walked into the HR director's office, her face barely maintaining a professional smile. "Please sit down, Sophia." Director Jillian gestured for her to sit, her expression somewhat stern. "We've received some complaints about you." "Complaints?" Sophia's voice slightly raised. "What complaints?" Jillian pushed a document towards her. "Employees have reported that you used your position to establish an improper relationship with attorney Nathan, and that you gave him undue preferential treatment during the signing process." Sophia's face instantly turned pale. Her relationship with Nathan did begin during the company's collaboration project with Nathan's law firm. As the marketing director, she had indeed given Nathan a lot of leeway in contract negotiations. "This is malicious slander." Sophia tried to defend herself, her right hand unconsciously gripping her skirt hem. "My relationship with attorney Nathan absolutely doesn't affect company interests, and besides, that contract was reviewed by the legal department." "The problem is, Sophia," Jillian sighed. "The whistleblower provided intimate photos and communication records showing your relationship began before the contract was signed. And you didn't report the conflict of interest to the company." Sophia's heart almost stopped. Those photos could only have been taken by a private investigator. A terrible thought flashed through her mind. Did James provide this evidence? I need you to take a leave of absence until the investigation is complete. Jillian's words hit like a hammer. The company takes this issue very seriously, and the board has already intervened. This is absurd. Sophia raised her voice. I've worked for the company for 5 years without any misconduct. This is clearly a frame-up. I understand your emotions, but the facts are clear. Jillian maintained professional calm. These photos and message records are very explicit. If you have any explanation, you can submit a written statement to the investigation committee. Sophia staggered out of the office, feeling the world spinning. She immediately called Nathan, but the call went straight to voicemail. She sent several urgent texts but received no response. At the same time, Nathan was facing his own crisis. His law firm's managing partner had called him into the conference room. Several senior partners were sitting seriously on both sides of the long table. Please explain this. Managing partner Harold pushed a document towards Nathan. Nathan looked down and almost suffocated. It was the complete record of his communications with Sophia. It included how they developed a private relationship during company collaboration and how he used law firm client information to help Sophia gain advantages in the workplace. Worse, there was evidence of him disclosing Blackwell Group's confidential business plans to Sophia. This isn't something I can explain. Nathan stammered. No explanation needed, Harold coldly interrupted. We've received a complaint from the Blackwell Group. They state that you leaked their trade secrets to Sophia's company. The Blackwell Group was one of the firm's most important clients, and also the one Nathan planned to introduce to Sophia that evening. More seriously, Harold continued, Mr. James, yes, that recently exposed tech tycoon, is also our potential client. His team has informed us that due to your improper relationship with Sophia, they will terminate all possibilities of cooperation. Nathan felt dizzy. James not only possessed wealth and power beyond his imagination, but also struck precisely at the most critical moment to cut off his professional lifeline. The firm cannot bear such reputational risk. Harold's conclusion was like a verdict. Please clear out your office by the end of today. The executive committee will decide whether to report your misconduct to the Bar Association. Nathan left the meeting room with heavy steps, only to find more than 10 missed calls and texts from Sophia on his phone. He hesitated, then turned off his phone. Now, he needed to consider how to salvage his career, and Sophia had become a huge burden. He began to think about how to distance himself from her while finding new employment opportunities. After all, being with a woman who was experiencing a career crisis and lacked financial resources and background didn't align with his career planning. Sophia waited all afternoon at a cafe outside the office, but Nathan never appeared. As darkness fell, her phone suddenly rang, an unfamiliar number. Miss Sophia? The voice was unfamiliar and formal. I'm James's legal representative, calling to inform you that due to the concealed assets clause in the divorce agreement, James has initiated legal proceedings to reassess the property division. Sophia's palms broke out in cold sweat. What concealed assets? He's the one who concealed those overseas companies. On the contrary, Mrs. James, the lawyer's voice was cold. All these companies were in the confidential asset list that James submitted to the court. And according to the divorce agreement you signed, you explicitly stated you didn't want any share of overseas assets. Now we have evidence showing that you and attorney Nathan conspired to conceal some of your assets. Sophia almost fainted. She did have an undisclosed inheritance stored in an offshore account that she hadn't revealed to James. Nathan had helped her design this hiding scheme, believing James would never discover it. We'll see you in court, Mrs. James. The lawyer hung up. Sophia slumped back into her chair, only then noticing the cafe's television was broadcasting business news. Well-known lawyer Nathan suspected of leaking client confidences, expelled from law firm. On screen, Nathan was caught on camera awkwardly jumping into a taxi. His face was filled with anger and frustration, a stark contrast to his previously polished image. Sophia's phone rang again, this time from Nathan. We need to talk. Nathan's voice was cold and distant. But not now. I need time to deal with this mess. It must be James who planned all this, Sophia said, trembling. He knew about us all along, just waiting for us to fall into his trap. Whatever the case, this is all over. Nathan's words pierced Sophia's heart like a knife. We both need to think about how to protect ourselves. What do you mean? Sophia's voice began to tremble. Didn't we agree to start a new life together? Sophia, look at reality, Nathan said coldly. I've lost my job, and you'll likely be fired too. We both need time to replan our futures. You mean we should separate? Sophia couldn't believe her ears. Temporary separation is wise, Nathan said, his voice without a trace of warmth. We'll talk again when things blow over. After hanging up, Sophia walked alone on Boston's cold streets. The once familiar city now felt like a huge cage. She tried calling James, but found she'd been blocked. All emails she sent were returned, and private messages on social media went unanswered. James seemed to have completely disappeared from her life, leaving only a huge black hole that swallowed everything. She returned to her apartment, sitting in darkness, contemplating her choices. Perhaps she should apologize to James, beg for his forgiveness? Maybe he would help her through this difficult time for the sake of their years as husband and wife. 3 months later, in Madrid, Spain, James stood in his new headquarters' top-floor office, overlooking the city landscape. During this time, his business empire had officially surfaced, shocking the global business community. His company's valuation had more than doubled, with investors competing to collaborate with him. These are the latest court documents. Emma handed him a file. The judge is completely on our side. Sophia not only has to return the hidden property, but also pay huge fines and legal fees. James took the documents, barely glancing at them. What about her job? She was fired, Emma answered. And because of reputation damage, no company in the same industry is willing to hire her. They say she can only work as a basic copywriter at a small advertising company, earning just a quarter of her original salary. James showed no joy or satisfaction of revenge, just calmly asked, "What about Nathan?" Even worse, Emma's tone carried a hint of schadenfreude. He was not only expelled from the law firm, but also faces investigation by the State Bar Association. Most importantly, because he leaked client confidences, no law firm dares to hire him. He recently found a consultant position at a small legal consulting firm, but the salary and status are far below what he had before. Are they still together? James placed the documents on the desk. They broke up, Emma answered, about a month ago. Reportedly, Nathan initiated it, citing need to refocus on career development. In fact, he has already started pursuing the daughter of an investment banker, obviously trying to rebuild his professional network through a new relationship. James walked to the window, gazing at Madrid's sunset for a long time. He didn't feel the imagined joy of victory, but he would never forgive Sophia's betrayal. Boss, Emma hesitated. Sophia sent another email requesting a meeting. This is her 17th attempt to contact you. Same as always, James didn't turn around. No reply, no meeting, no compromise. In her email, she says she's willing to accept any conditions, just wants your forgiveness. She says she was wrong and only now understands your value. Emma added, her tone contemptuous. Some betrayals, once they occur, can never be remedied. James's voice was soft, but absolutely firm. I won't waste time hating her, but I will never forgive her either. Please arrange next week's trip to Argentina. We need to personally inspect the new project there. Emma nodded and left, leaving James alone facing the darkening sky. He remembered meeting Sophia 8 years ago, the sparkle in her eyes and her yearning for the future. How ironic that when he truly achieved the success she pursued, she had already betrayed him. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Boston, Sophia sat alone at her computer, staring at another returned email notification. Her face no longer had its once exquisite makeup. The wrinkles around her eyes and haggard appearance showed the difficulty of these months. Sophia opened Instagram. James's page updated with new photos. Ribbon cutting at his new headquarters in Madrid, meeting with European political and business leaders, being interviewed by Fortune magazine. Each photo showcased James's success and new life, without a trace of the past, as if their 8-year marriage had never existed. In the photos, James looked calm and fulfilled, without a hint of darkness in his eyes. He had truly moved on and was doing better than ever before. What pained Sophia most was that James didn't seem to need her. This was completely different from Nathan's reason for leaving her. Nathan abandoned her because she lost her utility value. James gave up on her because she betrayed his trust. She picked up her phone, hesitated for a long time, and finally dialed Nathan's number. The phone rang for a long time with no answer. Just as she was about to hang up, the call connected. "What is it?" Nathan's voice was cold and tired. "Can we meet and talk?" "I want to tell you something," Sophia asked cautiously. "There's nothing to talk about, Sophia," Nathan was direct. "I have more important things to deal with now. My career is almost ruined. I need to focus all my energy on salvaging the situation." "But, listen," Nathan interrupted her. "We both made mistakes, but life goes on. Rather than dwelling on the past, think about how to rebuild the future." "I just wanted to know if you had." Sophia stammered. "If you had tried to contact James to explain our situation?" A cold laugh came from the other end of the phone. "Are you joking? James is now a rising star in the tech world, and I'm a disbarred lawyer. Do you really think he would care about our explanations? I thought perhaps if we together." "There is no we, Sophia." Nathan's voice turned ice cold. "I've moved on, and I suggest you do the same." The call ended, leaving Sophia alone in the silent apartment. She had thought love and ambition would take her higher, but never imagined she would fall so hard. 6 months later, Sophia's life had completely changed. She found an entry-level copywriting job at a small advertising agency, earning only a quarter of her previous salary. She moved out of her high-end apartment into an ordinary one in the suburbs. Most ironically, her new apartment happened to overlook the place where she once lived with James. Every day on her way to work, she could see that house, reminding her of the happiness she once had but destroyed with her own hands. She still regularly sent emails to James, but never received any response. Meanwhile, Nathan's situation hadn't improved. The State Bar Association investigated him and ultimately suspended his license for 2 years. He lost his high-end clients and could only take small cases to make a living. More ironically, the social circle he once prided himself on now avoided him. No one wanted to associate with a lawyer with a tarnished professional record. He had tried to contact James, hoping to reach some kind of settlement, but all attempts sank like stones. James had become the new darling of the business world in Boston and even across America. Nathan had become a cautionary tale, warning people not to sacrifice professional ethics for short-term benefits. A year later, on a clear day in Madrid, James received a special email in his office. "This is the latest email from Sophia," Emma said. "Usually I would archive it directly as per your instructions, but this time it's different." She mentions she's been diagnosed with depression and is receiving treatment. She says she no longer expects your forgiveness, just wants you to know she truly regrets hurting you. James was silent for a moment, then said, "Still handle it according to the usual rule." "Are you sure?" Emma asked carefully. "Sure." James's voice was firm. "I don't wish her to suffer, but our story is over. Call my charitable foundation in Boston. Make an anonymous donation to local mental health clinics. Ensure those who need help can get treatment." Emma nodded and left. James walked to the window, looking at Madrid's brilliant sunshine. He was 41 now, his company thriving, his life full and peaceful. He didn't hate Sophia and Nathan, but he would never forgive them either. Some boundaries, once crossed, can never be restored. 2 years later, on a cold winter day in Boston, Sophia accidentally encountered Nathan on the street. He looked much older than 2 years ago, with deeper wrinkles around his eyes and a noticeably receding hairline. "Long time no see." Sophia managed to smile. "Yes, long time no see." Nathan's attitude was milder than before, but his eyes still held distance. "You look well." "Thank you. I'm trying to rebuild my life," Sophia said. "And you? I heard your license was reinstated." "Yes, but everything is different." Nathan smiled bitterly. "Former clients no longer trust me. I have to start from scratch." The two sat in a coffee shop, briefly exchanging their recent situations. Nathan was engaged to a doctor, preparing for marriage. Sophia focused on work, slowly establishing herself in the new company. "Have you heard anything from James?" Nathan finally asked this question. "No." Sophia shook her head. "He completely cut off all contact with me. Though I heard he recently got engaged to a Spanish artist. Seems like he's truly moved on," Nathan commented. "Yes, and we should too," Sophia said, her eyes showing acceptance. "This is the result we chose ourselves." After saying goodbye, Sophia walked alone on Boston streets. The sky began to snow, and as she looked up at the falling snowflakes, she suddenly understood James's choice. He wasn't cold-blooded, but understood that some wounds never heal. The only solution was to completely cut ties and start anew. Meanwhile, in Madrid, James and his fiancée, Isabella, were preparing dinner at home. Isabella was a successful artist. They had met at a charity auction. She knew about James's past, but never asked for details. "You seem preoccupied today." Isabella handed James a glass of red wine. "Just work stuff." James smiled in response, but Isabella knew there was more. "Is today a special day?" she gently asked. James hesitated, then honestly answered, "Today marks 3 years since my official divorce from my ex-wife." Isabella held his hand. "Do you still think of her?" "Occasionally, but not in the way you imagine," James said honestly. "She taught me an important lesson. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven, some wounds cannot be healed. But life must go on, and it can get better." Isabella nodded with a smile, appreciating James's honesty. She knew he had experienced the pain of betrayal, but he chose to look forward rather than dwell in resentment. "Come, we should prepare for the airport." James stood up. "The project in Argentina can't wait." They left the apartment together, heading towards the waiting future. James occasionally thought of Sophia, but the feeling was no longer pain. It was a calm realization. Sometimes, life's greatest gift isn't getting everything you want, but losing those who would ultimately hurt you. On the other side of Boston, Sophia stood at her small apartment window, watching the snowflakes fall. 3 years had passed, and she still thought of James, of the mistakes she had made. He had never forgiven her, and she understood he never would. But perhaps this was exactly what she deserved. She picked up her phone, browsing the latest business news. James's company had just completed a major acquisition. In the photo, he stood with Isabella, both looking happy and content. Sophia turned off her phone, facing her modest but neat apartment. Life continues moving forward, and so must she. The price of hurting others is hurting yourself. The cost of betrayal is losing trust that can never be regained. She had paid this price and now could only continue on the path she had chosen. No one is purely a victim, and no one is completely a villain. Everyone shapes their destiny through their choices, and betrayal is always the most expensive choice. If this story resonated with you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more compelling content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.